Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you another FPL video. So in this one we're going to be breaking down my selections for Game Week 4 as a shortlist. They do feature some of the players that also were in the Game Week 3 watch list based on performances from Game Week 3 and their underlying stats moving forward into future game weeks. So if you do enjoy the content, first of all, please consider hitting that like button below. And if you do want to subscribe and hit the notification bell for all future content, that would also be very much appreciated. So let's jump into the video. We've got Ivan Toney first up, which I don't think will surprise many managers that he makes the watch list again. He was on the Game Week 3 watch list, producing 8 points in Game Week 3. So I believe a very, very justified pick moving forward as well. He's now gone up as well to 7.2 million with a 17.1% overall manager ownership. And I can see why so many managers now are looking at him as an option. So 25 points across the 3 weeks so far with a registered number of 0.46 for his expected goals per 90 and 0.36 for his expected assists per 90, which to be fair, based on his price, is not too bad. And with the fixtures coming up, you would argue that those numbers are either going to increase or at least remain consistent, right? So 2 goals and 2 assists so far, 2 big chances created and 7 chances created. There is the heat map underneath me as well, just to kind of have a look at where he gets in and around the pitch. I would say from an FPL standpoint, he's a little bit deeper than maybe we would like to see him. However, if you see, there's plenty of blue and green in that box area, which is where we're going to be registering essentially the most attacking threat for us. So looking great. Especially with those fixtures again, right? So Game Week 4, Everton at home, moving then into Crystal Palace, Leeds, Southampton and Arsenal up until the Game Week 8 fixtures. So, you know, if you're looking at a wild card and you're looking at a potential option to essentially see you out until that wild card decision, I think really he is a great pick, right? If you've got the fortune of having 2 free transfers this week especially, then I think a restructuring may be justified this week to bring him in, right? His fixtures look absolutely phenomenal. His numbers look great to back him up as well. So let's move into the second option in Ivan Perisic. Now he's not fully made me eat my words really in terms of what I've put out on this channel before. If you have been a follower for some time now, you may have heard me say a few times in initial drafts before the season kicked off that I was a little bit worried about, one, his age, his fitness, how he could bring himself up to speed in terms of the Premier League, what his output may look like, as well as his minutes, right? But Conte's actually shown that even, you know, with a little bit of reduced minute risk for him, or reduced minute output, should I say, he's still been able to register 2 assists in that time from an FPL perspective, which is absolutely phenomenal. His XA per 90 is actually stuck at 1.0 at the moment. So the stats are saying that pretty much every 90 minutes he plays, he's guaranteed to get you at least an assist from an FPL standpoint, which are great numbers. Unfortunately, not too much on the goal threat though, as he doesn't seem to be taking on many chances himself. He definitely seems to be a facilitator rather than an attempter, let's say. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's still produced 3 bonus points on top of his clean sheet and his assist last game week, right? So 12 points last game week, meaning his price has gone back up to 5.5 million after it dropped. So more managers bringing him in this week, and I can certainly see why based on the fixtures. So we have a look. Nottingham Forest away there in Game Week 4, moving into an arguably trickier fixture at the London Stadium for Game Week 5 against West Ham, and then Fulham at home in Game Week 6. So I think, to be honest, those 3 fixtures already justify him as a pick. Then moving into Man City and Leicester, they're not too bad fixtures. You could say, of course, City is a little bit trickier for him, but as long as really he stays consistent in terms of minutes and isn't rotated too much around the midweek fixtures, I do still think he is an option up until that wildcard week. So definitely one to consider also. Moving into the third option, then we've got Wilfried Zaha. So really, to be honest, my previous or one of my previous videos, I actually mentioned Eze ahead of him, just because I thought that from a creative standpoint that Eze he's on direct free kicks. You know, he's definitely got a very, very good pass on him, as shown when Zaha was given the through ball to score against Liverpool, right? So at 5.5 million, I was expecting maybe he was a budget version of Zaha, but his numbers just aren't quite as good as what this man is putting out. And of course, he's on penalties. Although missing one against Aston Villa, still managing to score the follow-up, meaning he's now on a total points score of 21 with an XG per 90 of 0.89, which is absolutely phenomenal based on the fixtures that they've had so far, right? I think, to be honest, the City fixture is not really one that I would target, but I would understand if you haven't got any moves to make, why not? There is absolutely no reason why you shouldn't be bringing him in against arguably one of the best defences in the league, because he's proven it against Liverpool. The only thing I would say is that when he did score against Liverpool, they've had a little bit of a rough start, missing some midfielders, missing Konate and Matip in terms of their central defenders, right? Only Van Dijk from a first team selection point of view is there. So scoring against them is not necessarily going to prove that he can score against City. But we've seen what Newcastle have done recently to them, right? So if Palace can put out any type of performance like they did against Arsenal and Liverpool, I still think that they could register something here. So definitely worth thinking about, especially from that downgrade from an 8 million midfielder, or in some cases 7.9. So definitely one to consider moving forward. If we then jump into our fourth option, again, I think no surprises. If you probably compared Rodrigo as a downgrade option versus Wilfried Zaha, you probably would lean more towards Rodrigo, right? Although, of course, he's not necessarily on penalties. That is maybe a slight downside. His numbers are absolutely outrageous. He pretty much matches the XG of Zaha with a slightly higher XA90 in terms of his assists, but registering 4 goals and 1 assist across those first 3 game weeks, being the player of the season so far in fantasy with 35 points. That is absolutely phenomenal. It's an absolutely brilliant start with him. I do think some of the reasoning is because of Patrick Bamford's injury. He's playing slightly out of position, and of course the game recategorised him this season as a midfielder as opposed to a forward, which is great for that extra clean sheet point, and of course the goals and the bonus points. It's helped him rack up a few extra points than he would have last season, I believe. And yeah, his minutes just seem to be pretty solid, right? So I definitely think he should be considered. And look at those fixtures. They are definitely things that we should be, or fixtures we should be targeting, right? Brighton in game week 4, that was probably the kind of easiest of the 2 fixtures moving into game week 3 and 4. With Chelsea in game week 3, he has proven though that, fixtures aren't necessarily all that we should be thinking about, as he scored and got registered the assist against Chelsea. I think Brighton may be a little bit trickier though. The goals he scored, or the points he scored, against Chelsea, was a Chelsea side without Conte, without Kovacic, no real control or running in the midfield per se. And just from a defensive point of view, I don't think Tuchel lined them up in the right way to deal with Leeds and how quickly out of the blocks they came, to be honest. I think from a managerial perspective, he underestimated what Leeds could do. I don't think Graham Potter's going to make the same mistake. He's going to have watched very, very closely what Leeds did at home versus Chelsea. And I think Brighton as an outfit defensively look very, very good right now. So I don't necessarily see an instantaneous return if you've brought him in for this week. However, that being said, from game week 5 to game week 8, I definitely believe he should be a strong consideration and a strong contender for that downgrade position from an 8 million midfielder, right? So the next person on the list here, I've really only put them on here not as a consideration to bring in directly, unless you cannot reach Rodrigo. He's really only here for a comparison against him, just because ultimately 0.3 less money if you can't free up the funds, if you haven't got 2 free transfers, or I don't necessarily think Harrison is worth a hit. Rodrigo potentially is worth it, but I feel like he is an alternative to him within reason. You've just got to temper expectations. That I've put the numbers here for you to see, and the heat map as well. He's nowhere near the box in terms of what Rodrigo's output is. I think that his finished sort of product in terms of the crosses this man is putting out now are arguably great from an FPL asset perspective. I still see more assists and still see more returns across the 5 weeks. I would just say try to find that extra money to get Rodrigo over Harrison. But again, I've put the details here and all of the statistics really for yourselves to review as a direct comparison against Rodrigo, and just make your decision based on those. And finally, last but not least, I have put the man himself here, Kevin De Bruyne. So again, kind of a trend with this video so far, really. It's the Game Week 4 watch list that actually isn't transfers for Game Week 4, and De Bruyne is included in that, right? So I think too many structures would have to be pulled apart in terms of our teams to bring him in right now, unless you take out Salah, right? But against Bournemouth, why would you do that? So really he is a game week 5 onwards fixture. The reason why I've brought him into this list though specifically is to already start getting managers to think about what we're doing with Erling Haaland. If you are an Erling Haaland owner, Pep has already come out and stated that come the midweek fixtures that Erling's not going to start every game. There is going to be rotation. De Bruyne also could fall into this category as well, but I personally believe that if he solidifies minutes and becomes less of a risk, if we take the value of players that we could go for, let's say Erling Haaland to Harry Kane, and let's say, of course, one of our midfielders down to, let's say, a Zaha, I personally think that De Bruyne and a Toney, for example, makes more sense. So if you've got an 8 million midfielder that you're holding faith in for this one more week, potentially downgrading Haaland to Ivan Toney and upgrading that 8 million mid to De Bruyne, in my opinion, from game week 5, looks like a very, very promising route. There is also potential as well for some managers maybe that if you don't jump on the Rodrigo train on this game week, if you really think that he's going to hurt you, then I highly suggest taking almost a -4 really for that, because I think that Rodrigo, De Bruyne and Ivan Toney could be great replacements as a kind of mini wildcard in game week 5 for us to be able to navigate the next few weeks up until game week 8 and then think about our wildcards, right? So I think ultimately that he's got to be on the list because of what he produces. He's created 12 chances and 5 of them have been registered as big chances created. He's not necessarily in and around the box as we would like again from an FPL asset, but if you watch the highlights against the Newcastle game, this man outside the box can carve open defences with one simple pass. It was absolutely phenomenal. For the third City goal, there was about 4 or 5 Newcastle heads or bodies that he had to get that ball through, and he managed to find Bernardo Silva in the box pretty much dead on the penalty spot. His weight of pass, his vision is absolutely second to none, arguably the best in the Premier League, and he's never started the Premier League so well as to this season. So I genuinely believe he's in his prime. He had a few injuries and a few niggles last season, and I genuinely think that he is an easy replacement rather than that simple Haaland to Kane move. So that's going to wrap up the video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed the content as always. Again, if you are new around here, please do consider subscribing to the channel and also smashing that like button if you did enjoy the content. So hopefully it was useful, and I'll see you in a team week selection video in a few days, as well as a deadline stream again come Saturday. So I'll see you in the next video, guys.